Come and dream with me.
Hello and welcome to What Do You Want to Watch, the Explosion Network's premier media podcast. Every fortnight we get together to talk about movies, TV and online content and help you answer the question, is 3.5 hours too long to watch a single movie in one sitting? Apparently. I'm your host, Ashley Hobley, and joining me this episode is Dylan Blight.
No. Yes, but no.
And also Nicholas Pryor.
And I am Millennial Ash, your host.
Okay.
Okay, Boomer.
Okay. We'll be going over what's our Watch series this episode. We'll be talking about a little bit of film news, and then we'll be talking about the movie that we ended up watching, Dragged Across Concrete. So, let's just jump straight into it. Movie that me and Dylan both saw in the cinema this week, Knives Out, the latest movie from Rian Johnson, of course, his follow-up to Star Wars The Last Jedi, a whodunit starring Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Don Johnson, Toni Collette, who else is in it? Jamie Lee Curtis.
Anna de Armas, the main character is played by Anna de Armas.
Anna de Armas. I was trying to think what her name was. From Blade Runner 49.
Yep.
2049. Dylan, what'd you think? Is it going to send the fanboys crazy? Are they going to be super upset?
Anyone out there
fanboys
I refuse to watch
of Star Wars?
No, because all these Star Wars people who are like, I would not watch this movie because Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars. Those people are idiots.
I mean, I didn't enjoy The Last Jedi, but I liked Looper, and I'm keen to see this one.
Yeah, it's people are legit saying
Hyperbolic.
that. It's amazing. It is amazing how people. No, this movie is really, really good, and it's nothing like Star Wars. Obviously, it is. It is like it's an old school Agatha Christie novel, I guess. It's like there's a murder that happens. The first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the movie is like meeting all the characters and getting introduced to them as they're interviewed by the police, and then you finally get introduced to Daniel Craig, which is putting on this amazing.
Awesome.
Texan
Southern accent. Like it's like an Alabaman or
glorious.
something, I think.
It's amazing. And I'm going to say it's funny because it rides the line of being bad that it's good, and to the point, it just rides that line.
It's also not the same accent he used in Logan Lucky. It's like slightly different.
I like it. I think it
he
works.
does get called the
and
Colonel
I think
at
it
one point,
works.
so that's the kind of accent.
It works out even more in the movie because they make fun of his own accent in the movie, like the characters do. So it quite works right there. It's hard to talk about the movie without spoiling it a bit because honestly, I mean, I've watched trailers. I would say that trailers don't really properly explain how the movie plays out. Like it is a whodunit, but like half an hour to 45 minutes in the movie, I'd say they reveal something, and you're like, oh. Okay, that's
okay. Like, well, what are we going to do the rest of the movie?
Yeah, like what are we doing for the rest of the movie? How's this going to play out? And it plays out in high fashion. It constantly had me questioning what was going to happen next, where it's going to go. I think if anyone can say they properly predicted the way this was going to play out, I'd say they're a liar because by the time it all reveled at the end, I was like, clap, 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 like well done. That is very well put together. No, again, without spoilers, I'll also say that I was quite surprised and pleased with how well Rian Johnson managed to write in some social commentary to this movie and how relevant it is to the main plot. Like, it's not just like a side little tidbit thing that's chucked in. Like, there's a certain social commentary that he's having in this movie that is very, very relevant to the plot of the whole movie. And I think the way he weaves that in is very well done for the main character played by... What is the main character's name, actually? I brought it up. Marta. Marta is the main character in the movie played by Anna de Armas. She's this...
nurse.
What do you call it?
She's like
assistant?
a full
nurse?
caretaker nurse,
Full-time
that
nurse.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
to Christopher Plummer's...
Harlem Thornberry.
That's right.
Which is the
Nigel's
he's the
brother.
character that dies right at the start of the movie. I mean, that's not a spoiler. That's literally the
His
start
body's
of the
discovered dead
movie.
at the start of the movie, yeah.
Yeah, at the start of the movie. Yeah.
Just quickly going into spoilers, how was the Tim Curry cameo and the reveal that it's a sequel to Clue?
It was shocking.
You know, that after credit sequence came out left field. It's some would say some would say that's a bigger risk than what he did in The Last Jedi, but you know.
Yeah, I heard it's going to be kind of like a Hasbro kind of combined universe, and they're bringing in Battleship.
Please no. Yeah, if that to happen. I think the thing I walked away from this movie though most pleased about, I think at the moment this definitely sits on my shortlist for best movies of the year very easily. It's amazingly put together. You got this star-studded cast where you've got all these like amazing actors, yet they somehow get a chance to shine each, and they all stand out in their own different ways. And then the music and everything, and and then you walk out of the cinema, you're like, that felt good to watch like a new original movie that's not based on something, that's not a sequel. You know, like sometimes I really enjoy just getting a breath of like, so that's what this movie was. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I'm not going as crazy as some people saying it's like the best film of the year, but I think it's really well constructed, really well put together. Again, there's that moment where you think, where's this movie going to go from here? You think we know everything, and then turns out we don't know everything, which is great. Just the reveal at the end was satisfying. All the characters are really interesting. Well, most of the characters are really interesting. I feel like some of them get a little bit shortchanged or like are not explored a hell of a lot. Like some of the family, but that's
big family.
It's a big family, so
it's a very big family.
So yeah,
I'll say also the last shot of the movie's probably one of my favorite shots to end the movie on all year for sure. Yeah, it just made me laugh. Like the final scene, the final shot of the movie, I just had like I would have had a smirk on my face. I was like, that is good. That is a good joke. Because it literally ties it back to what you see at the very start of the movie. And it works out quite well, how it all ties together.
Yeah. I'm keen to see it again, just so with the knowledge of how it all plays out.
100% think it needs two viewings to enjoy the like watching everything play out and knowing how it's going to end up. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm super happy that Rian Johnson's considering doing more Benoit Blanc films. I think that could be cool. That could be very good, even though he's not like the most incredible detective. I don't think we've seen. He's not like Sherlock or something, but he gets the job done.
He's more realistic. He's not like reading people's
expressions and that kind of
expressions and all this stuff. But I'd say at the end of the movie you get to see how smart he is when he stuff happens.
Yeah. So Dylan, you also watched a documentary recently, Susie Q. What's Susie Q? Who is Susie Q? What is Susie Q? Who is Susie Q?
That Susie Q.
No, not that song. There's
Is it the sequel to John Q?
No,
the movie we watched last episode.
Oh yeah, I was so forgettable. I forgot it happened the other week. No, Susie Q is this documentary made by an Australian filmmaker telling the story of Susie Quatro, this big, prolific rock star during the late 70s, early 80s, I guess. She was really popular in the UK, Europe, and really popular in Australia, which in my review that I've got over on ExplosionNetwork.com, I do note how I knew who Susie Q was from a young age, and because my parents listened to her at different points in time, and I'd heard her music around. And I also note in my review how I used to have a manager that I worked for who was obsessed with her, and when she toured here a couple of years ago, ran off to go watch her. And so I've always thought that Susie Q was this kind of she was a major rock star at one point and then kind of died off. But I didn't know anything more about her other than that, I guess. And this documentary is real enlightening as to why I know about her and why she was so popular here, but why she's not popular in general. And that's because she failed to ever break into the American market. Even though she appeared on Cheers, she had a recurring role on Cheers as the Fonz's girlfriend, I think, was basically what she played on that for a short period of time.
And Cheers or Full House?
Cheers? Yeah, the one with old Ronnie Howard?
No,
Ronald?
Cheers is Ted Danson. He's the bar owner.
Oh, no. What's the one I'm thinking of then? What's the one with old Ronnie?
Is that
Ronald
Full
Howard?
House? No.
No.
Happy Days.
What's that one? Oh,
Happy
Happy
Days.
Days. Thank you. That's it. That is it. Yeah. Happy Days. Yeah, with old mate Fonzie McDonald in it. She had a recurring role in that. So the documentary is good. It's more of a like, hey, you may not know who Susie Q is. This is why you should know who she is, and I think it does a good case on telling you why you should know who she is, because she's kind of very much unappreciated, I guess, in the industry, because she was like the first kick-ass. You know, she was out there singing, playing bass guitar, leading her own group. She inspired people like Joan Jett and the Runaways, Cherry Curry and all these other people. Pre-generation, which a lot of people think of her and that group as like this, you know, inspirational old girl rock star group, but Susie Q inspired them. So she's just somewhat underappreciated, unknown in a lot of ways, unless you knew of her and you lived in the right places. So I'd say the documentary is enlightening and an easy watch. You've got people like Alice Cooper in there talking about her and how she was an interesting one, because he'd tour with her, but she was like not the typical rock star. Like, everyone would be doing drugs and this sort of stuff, and she'd be like, I'm just going to have my beer. You know, like, she wasn't in it for the rock star lifestyle. She just generally liked playing music, getting out there. But then when she was off stage, she's like, I'm good. I'm chill. You know, there's no need for me to be a crazy person. So I think in a lot of ways she stands out as a unique character for that time period, especially. But yeah, it's very good. I think I gave it a 7.5 or something like that. Read my review if you want more thoughts. ExplosionNetwork.com.
Cool. Nick, I saw that you watched Hotel Mumbai, an Australian film from earlier this year.
I did.
What's Hotel Mumbai, and why should people care about it?
Hotel Mumbai is it's a historical film based on true story about the terrorist attacks in Mumbai in 2008. It centers around a cast of characters. It's got some pretty big stars in it as well. It's got Dev Patel, Jason Isaacs, Armie Hammer, and a few others I can't really remember the name of right now, but it follows all these characters as they converge on the hotel before the attack, and then tells the story of them just trying to survive and the story of what happened. I mean, they take some liberties with the story, like people are made up considering they died, be pretty disrespectful, but it's quite well paced. There's a lot of tension. Enlightened me on not exactly what happened, but the vastness, because I remember vaguely of it happening way back when, but didn't really know much more about it. But yeah, it's enlightened me to research a bit more about it and learn more. The only thing that was a bit glaring for it to happen in Mumbai, it only really revolves around one Indian character, and all the rest are Caucasian. Like, Jason Isaacs is a Russian, and there's Americans and Australians in there. Like, it's all the Indians are kind of in the background, which I don't know, maybe that's for commercial reasons, but it's, I guess, glaring, as in, because most of the reason a lot of the people survived and the heroics were because of the staff of the hotel. So you can take that or leave that, but it's quite a good movie overall.
Cool.
Yeah, well, I think that's just a general problem with these sorts of movies, where they're like, we gotta put in a white dude to star.
Yeah,
but also I'd be like, Dev Patel isn't a random, like, everyone knows who Dev Patel is.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, but the one like central character is an Indian with it's surrounded by mostly Caucasian.
Okay.
Can we claim Dev Patel, seeing as he's been in Lion, he's been in Hotel Mumbai, 2 Australian movies?
May as well. We've claimed people for less.
There you go. Here first. Dev Patel, Australian. Nick, I also saw you went back and watched The King of Comedy. I
did, yes.
Were you like, hey, I'm thinking about seeing Joker again. Maybe I'll see the cheaper version, or the version that has been around for years?
I can see the similarities between it, but I also think it's quite a different movie as well. It's very much a character study. Robert De Niro, Jerry Lewis was actually quite good in it, because I have not really seen anything him in, but like I've seen clips and people talk about him being quite a comedic actor, and revolving mainly in comedies, but he was quite good as in a dramatic role in this. I did want to see it after The Joker, but it completely blanked my mind until I watched The Irishman and I wanted to watch a good Scorsese movie. So I went back and watched that.
Cool. That when I think of Scorsese and think movies that are like The Irishman, I think King of Comedy.
No, I wanted a palate cleanser.
Oh, okay.
It's about half the length, so
we'll get
it's not even 2 hours. I just looked it up.
We'll get to that in a bit. Dylan, I saw that you finally watched the rock classic Jumanji.
Oh, this is one of those movies where I must have watched it right after last week's episode. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I forgot. It was okay. I mean, it's fine.
It's very formulaic.
It's just exactly what you think it's going to be. I didn't think it was. A lot of the jokes were hit or miss, so then my attention was like, this is funny, I'm enjoying this scene, and then the next scene would come along and I'm like, this isn't so funny, I'm kind of bored now, and can we just move along? And then sometimes I'd do the same jokes over and over, and it got me to the point where I'm like, okay, that was a one and done movie. I guess I sort of enjoyed my time with it at points, but how the hell are they doing? Now I'm like, really, do I want to watch a second one? How do they pull this off again? And I guess the refreshing thing for the sequel is supposed to be that they're switching different actors into the, so The Rock isn't playing the same version of the character, it's got a different person in him. So I guess it's different. It's still it's nothing like the original. I mean, it's, it still made me go, damn, I wish the original's just, there's something classic about the original. It's funny because I looked up the reviews for the first one. Everyone hated it back when it came out. And I'm like, yo, wrong. This movie's amazing.
I see that you've also been in a bit of a best of the year catch up with a couple of the other movies that you watched.
As with every year.
Yeah.
For everything, games, video games, TV shows. Ah!
Yeah. So you finally watched Midsummer this week.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch the theatrical or directors?
I watched the theatrical because that's the only one I could see on iTunes. So, it's good. I would say that I still prefer
Hereditary.
What's the fuck
Hereditary.
over this? Yeah, I was mental blank, but I still prefer Hereditary a lot over this. It's just not it's visually very interesting. It has interesting characters because a lot of them are very flawed and whatever else. But overall thematically, it didn't click for me as much because the thing of Hereditary, the thing that turns people off a lot is the ending, which I was fine with. And I think I was especially fine with that because everything up until the last 15 minutes I was so on board with, and it was this kind of horrific family drama, and that's what grabbed me so much of that movie originally, was that it's just this horrific fucked up family drama. Whereas with Midsummer, I was for a lot of time I was I don't know what this movie is really about, and it took me so long to understand where the hell it was even going. But I mean, the first time someone dies in that movie, it's okay, that's fucked up. That is fucking nasty shit happening right here. And the movie ends, and I'm like, okay, I need to think about this. What the hell did I just watch? And especially the way the movie ends, it has me a lot of questions. But Florence, did you say Pug or Poog? Does anyone know who pronounced her last name?
Poog. Pug.
Because it's P-U-G-H. So
I don't know. In 3 months, we're all going to know because she's pretty much in everything. So
she's in fucking Black Widow and everything else. So, but she's really, really good in this movie. I think the takeaway from Midsummer, Pew. Okay, the takeaway from that movie to me is I'd seen her in something a couple things before, but I was yeah, she's good. She's good. But I watched Midsummer. I'm oh, I get why she's suddenly gonna in the next year or two
she's the
becoming
next it person.
Yeah, she's the next itch one because she is the standout from that movie. She is just the tension. She's really, really quite good in that movie. So I really enjoyed Midsummer. It's not anywhere near as good as Hereditary, in my opinion, though. So yeah,
All right,
good but not great.
All right.
Not
So
great.
I see
Hereditary is great.
I see that you finally got around to watching 8th Grade. What did you think of 8th Grade?
That was really good. That was better than Midsummer. The way you're comparing them. It's an interesting movie because it's
even scarier, arguably.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's a spoiler to say. There's a scene there where I forgot to say what Midsummer's about, I guess, in case anyone doesn't know, but I mean, come on, everyone knows what Midsummer's about. But 8th grade is like about this. How old is she? Like 12, 13, I guess?
8th grade, like, 12, 13, something like that.
Is that for an American? Yeah. So it literally is about this girl who, in her spare time, she's like filming all these YouTube videos and stuff, but she's a loner at school. And the movie like chronicles the last week, I guess, or so of her high school year. And just what happens to her. And I mean, that's the premise of the movie. But there is a scene there where she goes to a pool party where she's not friends with everyone. And the scene where she's like walking in, I wanted to like put the covers over my face. Either that, like, you know, where you start getting like really scared and embarrassed for someone. And I just wanted to be like, oh no, like what is going to happen? I don't want to watch this movie anymore. That's what 8th grade was like for me. But it's really good because it stands out. It's like, it's not your teen rom-com type thing. It's like, it's just a straight up, supposed to be realistic drama for what this girl and what happens. And there's a fairly dark thing that happens at the end of it. And I like the way they handled that with especially with her father. Her father, I don't have the actor in front of me, but her father's like really well acted in this movie. I thought every time he's in the movie, I'm like, he's just,
she's a great dad.
She's a dick to him. She's a dick to him. But every scene, he's just like, you could tell he's just like putting up with it because he's like, oh, my daughter. And you can tell he loves her and he's just being that like overbearing kind of father thing happening. So, no, 8th grade is really, really good. I'm surprised that, who directed it?
Bo Burnham.
Burnham.
But yeah, Bo Burnham. I was like, honestly, I was surprised because I've seen one of his stand-ups and I went into this movie going, okay, Bo Burnham, here we go. And I was like, okay, somehow you directed this and it's not a comedy. I mean, that's the thing. It's not a comedy. It's a drama.
Yeah.
I think there's like a couple funny scenes, sure, but it is a drama at heart, you know. And it's weird how good, like, because it stars a girl character, but you'd swear it was directed by a girl, I guess. Yeah. It seems to like get it. Yeah. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Glad I finally watched it.
Cool. And then I saw that you watched Under the Silver Lake, which is an interesting film because it seemed to be in release hell. I think it was made several years ago and wasn't released till like a year ago by A24. It's an odd one. So
I only watched this last night as of recording, but I think it's one of my favorite movies of the year. I'm not sure. It's very, very. It's easily the weirdest thing I've watched all year, without a doubt. It's weirder, and we're talking about this in the same episode. I'm talking about Midsummer. This shit's weirder than Midsummer. Let's put it out there. I think the easiest way to pitch this movie is like, Richard Kelly did a movie years and years and years ago called Southern Tales, I think, or something like that.
Yes,
like that was his follow-up to Donnie Darko was like the next movie he did after that. That's this movie, but like better. But it's like, if you like Southern Tales, which a lot of critics didn't because it is fucking batshit crazy, but if you like that movie, you should watch this movie because that movie's this. It's Andrew Garfield plays, it's also very Lynchian, but not in like a horror, like fucked up way, just like crazy weird shit. It's like a neo-noir mystery that follows Andrew Garfield's character who meets a girl and he gets on with her very well and he's like attracted to her. And then overnight she disappears and then he tries to track her down. And I mean, just to chuck out words to grab your attention, he finds out there's a pirate, there's a king of hobos, there's underground secret societies. It's a movie where the dudes listen to records backwards trying to find secret messages. Like it kind of like digs into all the I guess urban myths, you know, these sorts of things. You know, listen to music backwards, you'll find secret lyrics. There's underground societies, you know, like the government's being run by all these people. Like it literally grabs all of that stuff and puts it into the weirdest fucking movie I've watched in quite some time. And it is really going to be one of those movies where you either watch it and it finishes, because I'm going to be, not to spoil it, it finishes, when the movie finishes, you don't get all the answers. You know, the movie finishes and you're like, okay, but what about that? What about this? But I kind of enjoyed that because then I was awake for the next half an hour, like thinking about it. And I enjoy that about movies. So you're either going to watch it and be like, this movie is really, really good. I love that. Or you're going to finish it and be like, that is a 1 out of 10. What the fuck, Andrew Garfield? Go back to being Spider-Man. Like, you know, so it's either one way or the other. And I very much lean on the side of, that was so weird and so wacky, yet I buy into your bullshit. It's from the director of It Follows, which may sound weird because It Follows was like this horror movie, obviously thriller, and now he does this very wacky detective-inspired pulp thing, which, yeah, I'd compared to Richard Kelly and David Lynchian as the directors to inspire it. It's very weird. I'm glad I watched it, though. I've been thinking about it all day, so it's done something right.
Awesome. And then I saw you also watch the documentary They Should Not Grow Old, the Peter Jackson documentary that was released at a weird time, so it wasn't eligible for Academy Award last year, and it's not eligible this year.
You know what it is eligible for?
What?
Our Best of Movies Awards, and it may end up getting nominated because this is a must-watch. This movie is amazing with a capital A, and I don't know how I hadn't watched it yet. It, like, from a technical point, it just, like, I don't understand. Like, how... I literally don't understand. You know, I'm so used to watching fucking CGI characters and stuff come to screen, and I just buy into it very easy. This is the first time I'm watching a movie, and I'm like, I don't understand how they do that, because the thing of this movie is that they've got World War One footage of stuff, the war and soldiers and whatever else is happening, but it's black and white. It's in like the shittiest resolution, and it's also the frame rate's fucked because it was all on those cameras. They had to, you know, they wind on the side. That was the frame rate. So it's like, unless they're keeping at a constant pace, the frame rate's going to be variable. You know, it's going to speed up, it's going to speed down depending on when they're winding it. And somehow Peter Jackson and his magical people over at whatever the
Oh no, not
is it?
Waiter.
I think it's a
Waiter.
different. Yeah, they go in and they've turned this footage into a standard frame rate, fixed it. They've scaled it up to HD. They've then gone in and piece by piece colorized everything, and it is shocking how I've never seen World War One footage look like this before, and it really is like inspiring to like a technological level. And I'm really glad that they've done this, because it's like this movie is really, really good, and it's all told by voiceover work solely by the soldiers. There's no person being like,
It's
the battles of 1976, you know, this sort of thing.
But also on the audio side, it's not actual audio. It's they've got people in that are lip reading experts.
Talking.
Yeah, for the lip reading experts, and
they
they've tried to ensure what they're saying by reading the lips and all that, and the inflection, and writing the script that way as well.
Yeah, so there's two sides of audio. There's like the VO, which is from the archival interviews of real soldiers, and that's what's used to narrate you through the whole story. They've cut together all these different soldiers. They never tell you the names because I guess it's not really important. It's supposed to be just the story. It's like, here are the people telling the story. And then when it gets to the real life footage, because of course the footage had no sound. Yeah, as you're saying, they've hired lip readers and then hired voice artists to perform the lip readings, and they've matched it to the real life actors. And that's crazy. And then they've added in, of course, you know, natural sound effects and explosions and guns and all these sorts of things. And you would swear it's legit. It is nonsense how good it works out. It's also really crazy to watch because this is 100 years ago, to the point where every time you watch any of the footage, everyone's staring at the camera as they walk past it, because the camera was such a weird object, of course. Yeah, new object, which makes the footage really, really interesting for that time period, because literally every scene they're filming something, everyone's staring at the camera. And you're like, why are they staring at the camera like that? Nobody's doing it. But then there's one scene in particular where the camera pans past or whatever, and they've, you know, the voiceover, they've lip read the dude, and he's like, lads, look out, here comes the pictures. And the dude slaps him on the head. He's like, shh. You know, it just works. It was a transformative experience. I'd say it's definitely the best war movie I've watched in ages. And I think the thing that really sold me on it at the end, where I was like, this is really, really good, is that it's an anti-war movie. You know, at the end they have all these voiceover people, the real soldiers, and they've got many clips of them saying, we don't know why I was fighting, was just glad we go home. No one has any idea why they was doing anything. They got home, they couldn't get fucking jobs. They were like, basically the movie ends with them being like, this war was stupid. We don't know why we fought it, and hopefully we don't know why it happened again. We don't know why it should happen again. And I appreciate, because, you know, as much as I enjoy watching a documentary about World War One, World War Two, I'm still very much like, these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't be going to war in general, blah, 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 blah. And I like a movie that takes that stance and doesn't give it a like, join the army. The army is great. You know, this movie is very much like, this was shit. Like, they were shit. You know, this is sucked ass.
Which it goes to show just like the stark difference between, I guess, in media between World War One and World War Two, where World War Two is kind of glorified when I've never seen anything about World War One that glorifies it.
Everyone hated it.
Yeah.
And there was nothing. There was no glory in it. It
No.
was just a shit war. There was nothing exciting. There were no great characters. Like fucking Hitler, I guess, is a character. You know, it's just like people fighting. And I think the other good thing about this is they just show like when they get German soldiers held as captives or whatever, and they've got interviews playing over, and they're like, you know, the Germans were all right.
Yeah.
They were just doing their job like we were. Like, yeah, just chilling with them. Some of them can understand it. You know, it was very much like. They didn't know why they were fighting. We didn't know why we're fighting. We're just fighting because some fuckwits some fuckwit politicians are all fighting with one another. So now we're out here killing ourselves to do this stuff. I think in general it's a good documentary the way it's presented. But of course the amazing factor is the fact the footage comes in the way it does, and that's the reason to watch it. And I'm really glad that this movie can exist as we go forward in years as a way to present World War One, because it's the way we never had to present World War One before this, you know. And it's only we had was shit footage.
It's only relatively short too, running at 99 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't drag on. It's good. No, it's really, really, really good. Really, really, really good.
Cool. Nick, why haven't you watched it yet?
I didn't even realise it was out on Netflix. I've been really wanted to see this. Yeah, I really wanted to see it at the cinemas, but it never came anywhere near me, and I just...
It was in 3D.
Yeah, it just fell off my radar, and now that I know it's on Netflix, I'm definitely going to see it.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I rented it.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Embezzling network money.
Oh, it is on Netflix. Oh, well. I gave them $4. They deserve it.
They deserve
They
the
do,
$4.
definitely.
They deserve it.
I'm sure
it was $4. It was only $4 on Google Play or something. So.
They deserve that HD DVD money.
They deserve price of admission.
Yeah. HD Blu-ray money.
You have no excuse not to watch it now, though. So.
Yeah. No excuse. Quickly want to touch on, I've watched the first half, like parts of this season of Arrow and The Flash. As of recording,
Wasn't that ending 2 years ago?
No. We're about to hit Crisis on Infinite Earths. These two series in particular have been pretty much acting as like a prelude to that event. The Flash kind of acting in that way where it's been... The Flash, it makes sense because obviously the idea... From the start of the show, there was the idea that the Flash was going to disappear in a Crisis-esque event. So he's been told at the start of the season that he's going to die in the Crisis. So it's the last 8 episodes of him has been him kind of dealing with that and sort of preparing everyone around him for his eventual disappearance and demise. On Arrow, it's a similar story where Oliver Queen has been told that he's going to die during the Crisis, and he's come back and is working with the Monitor, who is trying to stop the Crisis. So he's doing a bunch of different tasks, but really a lot of the time it's just an excuse to bring back old characters and explore old settings, especially seeing as it's the last season. So you get scenes with his mum and his dad and all the people he's met on the island and all that. They go back to the islands. They also bring the future storyline together with the present storyline, so they get to interact. So that's really cool. Like, there's this weird dynamic of his future kids meeting him in the present, and them sort of having the baggage of him disappearing and not being part of their lives for all these years. That's good. I'm really enjoying it. Super keen for the Crisis event, which is going to be in this next coming week. So I'm excited for that. Yeah. So let's move into the mandatory Netflix segment of the show. I'll save the best till last. I watched season 3 of The Dragon Prince. It's still a great animated TV show. Mostly very solid this year. They do have a bit more action because they actually get to some actual story beats, some important moments. They actually have some fighting and shit this season. And they got some magical creatures. They got some great comedy. It's a fun animated TV show. It owes itself to Avatar a lot. The Last Airbender. It has those, obviously, the lineage. It's got people who worked on that show. You can feel the same vibe, sort of humor and style. It definitely felt like it could have potentially been an endpoint, but it definitely feels like they're building to more. So I suspect they're definitely going to be making more Dragon Prince, and I'm keen for it. I'm keen to see where they go from here, what the world is going to look like. And all the characters. You have some characters turn more to the dark side. You have more characters turn to the light. So it's a good show. It's very enjoyable, good for kids and parents alike. Dylan, we've both watched separate episodes of The Movies That Made Us.
Yeah, my first question is, why'd you skip the first one?
I haven't seen Dirty Dancing.
What?
I know, shocking revelation.
Well, I'm not shocked, really. But
Also, research purposes, but yes. Go ahead. You watched the Dirty Dancing episode. What'd you think? Because obviously this is a documentary format that I mentioned before in previous episode. They did The Toys That Made Us. It's a similar style of commentary and like the delivery of the stories, I think. So what did you think?
yeah, so I never watched The Toys That Made Us. I'd say the delivery style that you're talking about is what stands out first, because like the show's edited together with this fast pace, I guess, and comedy to it, where they'll like have jokes at the expense of people, and it's trying to be a bit zany, I guess, with telling of the story. It's not like ultra serious, even if there's some ultra serious stuff happening, I guess. But at the same time, even though they're doing that, and I'm used to more serious stuff, so I was like, just calm down a little bit. But it's not like I completely disliked it, especially because I hadn't seen any of this story before. So I guess if they were making this for Star Wars, I would get pissed off because I would know a lot of this stuff. So I'd just be like, ugh, this is annoying me. But I think because I didn't know any of the stuff they were talking about for Dirty Dancing, I was still enjoying it, even with the way it's like cut together like it's some weird zany comedy. But overall, it's good. They have the writer there, the original producer, and the writer and producer, the people who got together to get Dirty Dancing to happen. And there's a whole story behind Dirty Dancing I had no idea that existed. Like, I think of this as this mega successful movie that just dropped out of nowhere back before I was born, obviously, and is now known as this classic. But through this 1 hour episode, I discovered that it's a movie no one wanted to make because of their name. Everyone thought it was a porn film. They had to go to this. The company that made the movie is this home video company that decided to get into actually producing real videos because no proper studios would finance it. They still kept trying to get the name to change. That Patrick Swayze and whatever the main girl's name is, who I can't remember, from Ferris Bueller, plays the sister. Those two hated each other off screen apparently because they'd worked together in Red Dawn before and hated each other from that. Patrick Swayze had like a fucked up knee the time they're filming it, and he just like pushed through like a champion to do all these dance scenes. There's lots of interesting facts I find through, and the interviews they get with people are quite interesting. So I don't know if every episode would be as good as this, because I actually think Dirty Dancing had a really unknown, interesting history behind it that I had no idea about. But I'm like, if it was a more tamer, less exciting, or like a story that I already known before, I'd probably find the episode not as good. But for this one, the first one, I'm keen to watch the rest. I mean, there's only 4 episodes in the season.
Only 4 episodes, yeah. So the second episode focuses on Home Alone, it also has an interesting history. Obviously, a massive success. Sort of goes into the history of John Hughes and how he wrote the film. Obviously, Christopher Columbus's history, and he almost directed National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but he didn't get along with Chevy Chase. I know, what a shocking revelation! What a shocking revelation! But yeah, just that the film was shot on an extremely low budget, was budgeted for like $10-15 million, which was still very, very little in that time.
Yeah, I think that's the same as Dirty Dancing. They said it was like very low for that time.
Yeah, but the thing was, it was being made by Warner Brothers at that time. but then they were getting over budget, and Warner Brothers cut the film, cancelled the film.
Oh.
But John Hughes has made a deal with 20th Century Fox that if the film went under Warner Brothers, the 20th Century Fox would take over. It's like, as the Warner Brothers guy was going around telling everyone to stop stuff because the movie's been cancelled, they had a guy going in the rooms after to tell them to keep working because they're now with 20th Century Fox. So it's a really interesting story. Obviously, a bit of a glaring thing is Macaulay Culkin isn't involved in the thing, which I think
Isn't he?
No, he's not. He's not interviewed at all, which is a bit of a shame. But other than that, it's a good, interesting look at Home Alone, which I guess I hadn't thought about much, and just like some of the thought process and the cinematography and that kind of thing, why certain shots are the way they are, and how they figured out how to do this zany comedy and that kind of and the stunt work, like the stunt work in this movie is crazy because it's real stunt people throwing themselves up in the air against concrete. So yeah, crazy. I'm definitely keen to check out the other two, or I guess the other three for me episodes, which would be Ghostbusters and
Die Hard's the fourth.
Die Hard. Yeah. So yeah,
In time for Christmas.
in time for Christmas. 2 Christmas movies in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Is Ghostbusters a Christmas? No, Ghostbusters isn't any Christmas. No. All right, let's get into the main attraction of this mandatory Netflix segment. The Irishman, the 60-hour movie that was released by Martin Scorsese on Netflix, starring Robert De Niro, starring Al Pacino, starring Joe Pesci, starring lots of people. Anna Paquin, that made people angry.
Harvey Keitel, Ray Romano, Bobby Cannavale, Stephen Graham, Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons,
That's all
yeah.
I can think
Meth
of.
Damon.
Who?
Meth Damon.
Who's that?
Because he looks like Matt Damon and he was in Breaking Bad. They call him Meth Damon.
Fucking hell.
I've never heard that in my
Really?
life. Wow.
Jeez. All right, Nick, you need to get a palate cleanser after this. But what did you think of The Irishman?
Overall, as a story, I liked it, but seeing Robert De Niro hobble around as a 50, like a geriatric, especially in that scene where he tries to beat up old mate,
Oh, man.
was just, that was cringe. And trying to stepping over the rocks to throw the gun in the harbour, it just did my head in. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, the whole de-aging just took me out of the whole experience all the way through. And not one point in that movie does it look under 50 years old. They all look
Well, I
their
don't
age
think
the
he's
whole
meant to be
time.
under 50.
Yeah, he is.
The youngest he is like 40.
Especially when they're fixing the truck. I think that's even earlier.
Okay.
No, he's supposed to be like 40-ish there.
It just,
Or like
I don't
30s
know.
or something.
It just took me out of the whole experience. I couldn't focus properly. It just really killed it for me.
They could not have got away with the 20-year-old. I think the only time he looks that young is when they flash back to like a
When he's in the
30-second
army.
scene of him where he's in the army. That's the youngest he is.
Yeah,
and if they'd
Stop
done that
moving.
for the whole movie, it would have like ruined it.
I'm
I
all
wanna
for
get
this. I just want to finish my point. Like, I'm all for the story. Like, I was really interested in the Jimmy Hoffa angle, and like, I'm very union centric in my political views, and seeing that side of it was, especially at that point, or in America anyway, was very interesting to me. And all the acting was great. I especially liked the contrast between his earlier films where I guess Goodfellas was all showy in its action and all that, where this was more workmanlike and didn't glorify any of that side of it. I mean, yeah. It's... Robert De Niro, ironically, was kind of the worst part for me. At the end, he was good, but like all the way through, he just seemed... I don't know if that was just the character or the person. He just seemed very spaced out, I guess, the whole way through, and just dense. Like, didn't really know what was going on the whole time. Like, he was oblivious to it all, in a way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, Hoffa will come good, he'll be alright, yeah, surely. He's just, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I reckon if they got age-appropriate actors and then had them elder, that wouldn't make it better for me, but obviously that's a hypothetical and I don't know what that would have been like, but I just think his focus on putting those actors in at the younger points took me out of it.
I want to. I'll go last because obviously I presuming I liked it the most. But also before you give your thoughts, Ash, I just how many Scorsese movies have you watched prior to this? Because I didn't think you'd watch many.
Me?
Just as like a no, Ash. I didn't know how many Ash had watched.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Not many.
Yeah,
Or
not all of them.
So have you seen Goodfellas?
Yes.
And Casino.
Casino, yes.
Oh well, you've okay.
So I've seen these.
That's fine. Yeah.
I've seen enough.
The most relevant ones for this
His
movie.
most overrated ones.
Yes.
Well, it's the most like this one.
Okay, his most popular ones, I guess.
I guess. It was good, mostly. Again, I feel like, especially that one scene of him beating up that guy was
Beating up.
I think
The fucking guy threw himself through the window.
It's become abundantly clear that you can do a hell of a lot with this de-aging stuff, but you can't make an old person move in a way that a young person can. You saw it in Captain Marvel when Samuel L. Jackson ran around. I think they had similar things with Will Smith in Gemini Man. In this, when he's trying to do anything physical at a younger age, it doesn't look realistic. So, as long as we know about those limitations, I mean, it's fine. I didn't have too much of an issue with the de-aging thing, or maybe it was just have a lower level of suspension of disbelief. It's easier for me to suspend my disbelief, or whatever. But I think it was very long. But that's kind of the point. It was compared to his other films, which are like like you said, very showy and fast paced, and everything's happened really quick. And this was very slow and methodical and workmanlike, which is fine. But I mean, it was a bit of a slog to get through. I really question whether it would have felt different seeing it in a cinema where there's no opportunity for any other distractions, which I fell victim to at times. I'm like, I'll quickly check my phone because this scene's going on a while. You know, they're driving for a while. I don't know if it was the editing's a bit odd. It's a bit, I feel like...
There was one point, sorry to interrupt, there was one point there where it was blatantly like atrocious when he's making the phone call. It's like two scenes like real cut together, and it's really jarring as well. Like the ADR was really off at that point.
Yeah, some of the jumping around with the timelines wasn't helpful either, especially with the de-aging thing, and you're showing them with slightly different ages. It's just a little bit jarring. But overall, it's a good film. I can't argue that. I can't argue against that. But it's probably not one of my favorites of the year. Do you disagree, Dylan?
I think I obviously disagree, but that's fine. I'm not going to argue with anyone disliking this for the reasons you've said, because I think my biggest problem with the movie is the CGI stuff can be... I don't understand if that takes people out of the movie, I guess. Like you're saying, like the scene you are talking about is the one I literally brought up in my review. And like, I suppose I'll say here, like I reviewed it, explosionhour.com. I gave it a 9. So obviously I liked it quite a lot. But I do call out in my review how that scene where Robert De Niro walks out of this place and he's attempted to kick the shit out of this dude. He's just like, I'm like, oh, this is terrible. That's probably my least favorite scene, just because it shows like you can't make an old person move like a young person. It's quite funny, and like it's a learning experience, I guess, for a lot of people in the industry about what this tech can do. You know, it's like this movie is like an example of, yeah, it looks good, like better at other times than others, sure, but you can't make an old person move like a young'un. That's certainly the lesson to take away. But I think the CGI and the de-aging stuff is fine. I don't think it's great. I think it's acceptable most of the time. And the reason that I have no problem with it is because I think the acting is so good for me that it carries it across the line from being like good CGI to great, because I'm so invested in the performances that I just give way. You know, I forget. I completely glaze over. I wasn't distracted watching this movie because I was into it. Like, there was literally one stage where I realized I was like sitting here in this chair, I'm sitting here recording this podcast, like in my TV. I'm like leaning forward. I'm in that invested, and I think I was loving this movie again because I'm like, oh, this dialogue, the way these snappy actors having, like, seeing Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro and all these things, like, I do think a lot of it comes back to because when I was in high school, and I think I've like talked about this sort of stuff before, like with Tarantino movies and whatever, where it's like when I'm in high school and I'm like, I'm suddenly getting into movies and I'm like renting heaps of stuff and, you know, like getting more serious about, I'm a movie guy, you know, these sorts of things. And you discover Scorsese and I, you know, start watching all these movies and I'm like, what a world I've never been introduced to before this. You know, I watched Goodfellas for the first time and all these sorts of things, Casino, whatever else. But this shit's amazing. And watching this, I was like, oh, what a movie. Like nothing else this year to me has like just grabbed me and been like, you know, this is what, remember these sorts of movies? They don't make them anymore. I'm like, you're right, Mr. Martin. Fuck the Marvel movies. This is cinema. Like you've got me. Like I'm on board. So I don't know. It's like, I find it weird that it's on Netflix because I feel like the Netflix audience is not the audience of this movie at all.
Wasn't Scorsese one of the ones whinging about Netflix and the award shows?
No, you're thinking of Spielberg.
I thought there was a few of them.
There was a few, but I don't recall Scorsese being one of them. I mean, like he's been very open about like saying that cinema is kind of going to shit a little bit, which in some regards, I mean, he's right and he's wrong at other points about things. Like I disagree with his Marvel comments. Obviously, we've talked about that, but at the same time, I kind of get what he's saying a little bit. But when it comes to Netflix thing, it boils down to this: no one would give him the money for this movie, but Netflix would, so he took it. I mean, that is
I'll throw out all my stances for cash.
Yeah. Well, he's like, I watched the after I finished watching the movie, they had that 20-minute talking to the cast like roundtable thing with Scorsese with Pesci and De Niro and Pacino all sitting around talking about the movie, and one of them asks him about like Netflix deal and all these sorts of things, and he literally just says like, I just wanted to make the movie. I don't care where it is at this stage. Because it seemed like he'd been trying to make the movie for so many years that when they were like, hey, we'll give you the money, he's like, whatever. Watch it on your fucking phone. I don't care at this stage. I just want to make the movie. Because apparently him and De Niro had been trying to make it for like nearly 10 years at this point. Or something along those lines. And the technology wasn't there and the money wasn't there and whatever else. But no, to me it was... I loved it. I was not bored for a second. I don't want to watch 100 of these movies a year, obviously, because they're too long and they're too big and they're too deep. But for 3.5 hours, I wasn't bored at all. And all of that comes down to the dialogue and how good the actors are. I mean, just seeing Joe Pesci back on my screen, I was like, Joe fucking Pesci back. Joe
Pesci
movie.
Was really good in this.
He's the standout.
Surprising
to me, alongside Pacino, actually, but. Yeah, but that's the other thing I love. Like he's known in Scorsese movies for being the
over the top
funny. Like funny how? You think I'm funny like ha funny or fuck you? You know, like that's Pesci. And in this movie, he's literally the complete opposite. And I love that about it. Also, Pacino in this movie is literally the best he's been in like 10 plus years. Easily the best performance he's given in 10 plus years, which is like Pacino, for fuck's sake, go work with some good directors.
Did you see the story that was doing the rounds? Apparently, the reason he's been in so much mediocre stuff is he's been trying to make that stuff better. You know?
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not working.
Yeah, but better by comparison.
Yeah.
The old Nick Cage.
You know, he's looking for a challenge.
Method.
He's getting old, wants a challenge. And,
he was good, but I think it's Pacino we've seen before, like the big grandiose, fucking over the top kind of Pacino.
He has a little bit of it, but it's not. I don't think it's like typical Pacino. Like he lets loose a couple times, and I think that's the character as it was in real life a little bit, and that's why it works as a role for Pacino. But like for the most part, him getting up there and giving the big speeches, you know, as to all his people at the I was trying to remember the name of the actual place. The
Teamsters, yeah.
Teamsters Union, like he's giving all these speeches. That works for Pacino. And there's like one scene in particular where he gets angry. Like that's very Pacino, but it's still like toned down a little bit more than like your Scarface type Pacino performance.
The worst thing is that it took this long to get Pacino in a Scorsese movie.
I know, that's the other amazing thing. I said that to someone the other day. I was like, you know, he'd never worked with Scorsese before. They're like, what? Yeah, they never worked together. It's quite shocking. And I know everyone makes a joke that like, oh, this is Scorsese's Avengers, and that's like the running thing that works quite well because of the whole MCU joke thing. But it's like, this isn't, because that analogy doesn't work because it's not a combination of characters from other movies. But in a lot of ways for like...
I think they're just saying by the scale and the achievement.
Yeah, the scale. Yeah. But that's what I was going to say. Like, in that, the comparison works because I guess for like film buffy type people, I'm watching this movie. I'm like, oh, there's fucking Harvey Keitel back in a Scorsese movie, De Niro in a Scorsese movie, fucking Pesci's back, fucking Al Pacino for the first time. So for that way, it does work. You know, like sitting there just being happy to see all these people on screen. But no, I loved it. I understand why some people don't. I'm not going to argue like, oh, you should love it because this, or you're wrong, or blah blah blah, or learn to watch a long movie, blah blah blah. I definitely feel like there are some people out there who, I mean, no offense, like if you all you watch is MCU movies and shit like that, your attention span for this, which has little action, is
excuse me,
going to be nothing.
Endgame was pretty similar length too.
It's 3 hours of fucking explosions.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, this is a movie, 3.5 hours
Just
of basically talking. Yeah,
there's explosions in this as well.
My favourite thing about this movie, though, is all the memes of people watching it on 2DSs and their Apple Watch. And
yeah, I haven't been enjoying that. It's quite funny.
Yeah, apparently he came out and said, please don't watch it on anything smaller than a big iPad.
He's like a big iPad, baby. Like, no. My last thing I'll say, as I said in my reviews, it's hard for me not to watch this and feel like it's Scorsese's last, which I find hard to take. Like, I mean, all of these dudes in this movie are old enough now, but it's like I could wake up tomorrow and see they've died on Twitter. So I guess, like, I feel good knowing...
things, though, they're not that old either. They're in their 70s. Like,
no, they are. I mean,
well,
they're at the age
where... they're in their 70s, but they lived hard in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in your time, Ash.
Harsh.
I feel like I'm like, what? How does Scorsese ever just be like, yeah, this is my final film, or does he just keep going? Is my thing after watching it.
He comes across as a person that wants to work until he can't.
Yeah, until he can't. Yeah, but this feels like a movie you do, and you're like, okay,
yeah, it's kind of like a
swan song, done.
The wrap up, the farewell, I guess.
Yeah, farewell party. It feels very much like that. So I'm like, damn, like what do you do after?
Oh yeah,
this,
it's the same kind of theme, and you don't want to be the last one left standing.
Yeah. See how
cool. Yep. So that's The Irishman. And that's everything that's been in our watch history. So let's move into some film news. Interesting move over at Disney. Apparently, they're going to be making another Planet of the Apes movie, which would be the first Fox property that they've started work on. Apparently, they brought on Maze Runner director Wes Ball to make the new Planet of the Apes movie, but there is no word yet whether it will be connected to the recent trilogy of films, or whether it's going to be a completely new reboot. The last movie is only 1-2 years old. It seems crazy to want to do another. In my mind, it's going to be a reboot. There's no way that they're going to continue the history unless it's going to be future Planet of the Apes, like
where Charlton Heston comes back.
Yeah,
I reckon that'd be a good kind of way to wrap it up. Disney owns Fox now, but I don't think behind the scenes anything would change. I think the same kind of creative talent would work on it, and you wouldn't really know the difference.
Potentially,
if they wanted to continue it anyway.
As someone who just listened to Uncle Bob's book, in
Bob
that
Iger.
he talks about
Bob
Iger. Yeah, sorry, I just keep calling him Uncle Bob. Bob Iger, right? Current head of Disney.
If only he was your uncle.
Uncle Bob, yeah, I'd be rich. He talks about the Marvel acquisition, the Disney acquisition, and a little bit about the Fox acquisition because that was more recent, obviously. But to him, he talks about how, like, when they acquired Pixar, like, making it Disney Pixar made sense because it was like family entertainment and like they were very similar in values and like people would recognize that and that works. But he also notes how when they got Marvel, when they got Lucasfilm, and when they got Fox, they never decided to like call them Disney Fox, Disney Marvel, Disney all this stuff because he wanted to make sure they would stand out and still be represented as their own brands, own companies. They're still run by their own creative teams, blah, 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 blah. Sure, they had, like, he does oversee them and whatever else, and he admits that, and he has his own input on movies and whatever else. But in that book, he does note that how, even though they acquired them, he doesn't want to take away from what made them good before they acquired them.
I think, in a way, it's kind of similar to when they owned Miramax, where no one would, I guess, give them the light of day if it had the Disney castle in front of it in the opening title card.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine going to watch a next Alien movie and it's like...
Yeah. Or even Clerks 3 or something with the Disney in front of it. No one would treat them, I guess, seriously. I think the conception in the wider public would go, oh, it's a Disney movie, it's for kids.
So I wouldn't be worried about that front. But as Apes movie, I personally don't want another one. I thought the way
I've
the
only
last
seen
one
the
wrapped.
first one.
Okay, well, spoilers for the end of the last one. They wrap it up so it like perfectly. The way the last one fits in is that, like, it perfectly ends where it makes sense how it wraps into where you know the story is going to go. And I was like, cool, that's a nice idea. Like, now the trilogy like perfectly fits into the old movies, I guess, and you know where it goes from here. I know exactly where the story goes from here. And sure, they could change some things, but you know what they're hinting at, what comes next, and damn you, what the hell? Like, I've seen it. I don't want to see it again unless they do something drastically new. I really like the trilogy that we had because they were new and interesting, and obviously the technology also made them stand out compared to the old ones because you got the Andy Serkis performance, which is really what makes those movies as good as they are, because you have this a performance which, in my opinion, he should. I wanted him to be nominated for Best Actor for what's the second one? War? No, Dawn. Rise.
Dawn.
I can never remember.
Dawn.
It's backwards.
It's Dawn.
Dawn. Yeah. Dawn. Yeah. So I really wish. I thought he should have been nominated for that when that came out, and I was like really annoyed at the time because I'm like, they're not going to give him the respect he deserves because it's this mocap performance and blah 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 blah. But I'm like, if the new ones don't have Andy Serkis and all these other things, I don't care.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it could potentially work if it's like Nick said, it's the future films of the Charlton Heston era of Planet of the Apes. If they redo it from there, then that would make sense. Because at least those are like 50, 60 years old at this point. So that makes sense to reboot that and kind of retell that story with modern technology, modern makeup effects and that kind of stuff. But to continue the story of the past couple of films feels a bit icky. Even though Wes Ball does have kind of a connection to Matt Reeves. Of course, if you didn't know, Wes Ball, other than doing the Maze Runner, was working on the Mouse Guard series that Disney cancelled, the Mouse Guard movie that Disney cancelled. And Matt Reeves was producing that. So, there's ties. But, yeah. It's an odd story to come out now, I guess. And out of all the properties Disney could be bringing to the screen to reboot a series that was last century was like only a few years ago seems odd. But yeah. Planet of the Apes.
Stranger things happened.
It's true. So over on Twitter, there's been a story that's blown up. Apparently, Mina Masad had an interview, the star of Aladdin, promoting his new show that's coming out called Reprisal. But the quote that everybody's pulling out and is quite surprised by is that he hasn't had an audition since Aladdin came out. So he hasn't been up for any roles since that movie came out, a movie that made over $1 billion worldwide. He says, I'm tired of staying quiet about it. I want people to know that it's not always dandelions and roses when you're doing something like Aladdin. He must have made millions. He must be getting all these offers. It's none of those things. I haven't had a single audition since Aladdin came out. So, of course, Mina Masad, a man of Egyptian lineage, it's not surprising in the current climate that he hasn't been offered anything. But on the other hand, he's a massive, recognizable face. Why wouldn't you want to get him in your movie, I guess? Do you guys have any thoughts on this? Nick, you don't care?
I haven't seen
You don't
it,
care
so
about diversity or anything?
It's not that at all. Like, I don't, just because he's in one big blockbuster movie doesn't mean he's a bankable star either. Like, how many other stars in big blockbuster movies have never seen the light of day again?
I would say that most big blockbuster stars, if they're white, will usually get at least the chance of, like, you come out of the movie, like, here's a bunch of offers, and then if they all turn out shit, then they disappear into nowhere. But at least they get those offers out the door first. Yeah. And then before they disappear into nothingness. I would say this is kind of disappointing because, I mean, look, I know the movie didn't review critically very well. I've said on this show before, I quite like Aladdin. I think it's better than the original movie. Really quite enjoyed it, and he's really charismatic and funny, and he's really quite good at it. So, and given the type of movie it is, I would love to see him do something different. Like a more serious movie, to see him spread his chops a bit, I guess. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like everyone should know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd one. I think it's interesting to draw the comparison to Henry Golding, who obviously was super successful, starting off in Crazy Rich Asians, but has since been in movies like Last Christmas and Simple Favor and The Gentleman, which is coming out, and is set to star in Snake Eyes next year. So someone of Asian descent getting pushed, whereas this guy who was in the massive Disney movie is getting nothing. It just seems odd, and you can't put out a blanket statement that it's just because he's not white, I guess. But yeah, everybody on Twitter is super defensive, I guess, and angry. Well, at least a certain portion of Twitter. But yeah, I thought I'd bring it up. It's kind of an odd story, but yeah, at least he'll get that Aladdin 2 movie, because they're definitely working on that. So, maybe when that comes out, makes another $1 billion, because we all love Return of Jafar. And,
Is that confirmed they're doing Aladdin 2?
I believe they're doing an Aladdin 2, yeah. I don't know if it's guaranteed, but I believe it's in the works.
I don't want them to, because Guy Ritchie's got that Gentleman movie coming out. I'm like, yeah, it's Guy Ritchie's coming out of
maybe
the
Guy Ritchie won't come back.
Oh, good, because he's like coming out of his weird like Hollywood spectrum back to doing the movies I loved him doing. So I'm like, don't go back to that.
Yeah. See if I can find guaranteed. No. So yeah, it just said the producer has announced enthusiasm for a sequel, and Disney are in early stages of developing a follow-up.
Yeah, I've announced enthusiasm for the Explosion Network to make $1 million a year too. So
the studio also hopes to bring back Ritchie to direct and Smith to reprise his role. So
did Guy Ritchie direct that?
Aladdin, yeah.
What the fuck?
You can tell with the action scenes, the way they're shot.
Coming to Disney Plus sometime.
Dude, it's really good. Everyone hates it because
it is
they're wrong.
So we're getting to that time of the year where it's award season. So I'm going to bring up a couple of different award programs. Some of them have been announced already. Some of them are just nominations.
ExplosionNetwork.com, best of 2019.
It's coming up. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to have best of TV, best of games, best of movies.
Movies? Yeah, that's the word.
That's the words. All right. Quickly touch on them. All right. So they held the Gotham Awards recently, which is a New York journalism awards. So the best picture for that was Marriage Story, with Adam Driver also picking up Best Actor for Marriage Story, Awkwafina picking up Best Actress for The Farewell, and Marriage Story also picking up Best Audience, the Audience Award.
Yeah, so I've seen...
Best Audience?
Like,
yes.
audience loved it.
Audience Award, yeah.
Oh,
Best
right, so like People's Choice.
Yes.
Yeah. From the thing, not from like...
Yeah.
Yeah. They do it at, like, festivals. Some festivals, I guess. They do audience awards. That Marriage Story, I need to watch... I'm going to watch that within the next couple of days, because I know that's one that everyone loves. And I should watch it before we do...
on Netflix. We'll be talking about it next episode. Guaranteed.
Yeah, so...
Never even fucking heard of it before.
It's Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson get divorced.
Directed by Noah
Baumbach.
Baumbach.
The synopsis.
Oh, it's got Alan Alda in it.
Yeah. I've been like, everyone keeps talking about it, loving it, and I'm just sitting here week by week, the last couple of weeks, being like, okay, we'll fucking drop the thing so I can watch it before we do our own fucking awards. Come on, Netflix.
It's still got time. So, then the National Board of Review, the big motion picture organization over in America, released their awards. The best film for the year was The Irishman. Best director was Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Best actor, Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems.
I can't wait to watch that.
Best actress, Renee Zellweger for Judy. Best supporting actor, Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Best supporting actress, Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell. And Best Original Screenplay went to Uncut Gems. Best Adapted Screenplay went to The Irishman. Best Foreign Language Film went to Parasites. Best Ensemble went to Knives Out. And then they list their top films for the year, which in 1917, Dolomite Is My Name, Ford v Ferrari, Jojo Rabbit, Knives Out, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Richard Jewell, Uncut Gems, and Waves. So, interesting that Adam Sandler could potentially be looking at some award buzz this season.
One thing I'm learning over the last couple of years, a lot of these actors, Vince Vaughn included, after watching Brawl in Cell Block 99, a lot of these actors that you're like, oh, they can't act, all they do is comedy movies. It's much like you know that saying how they say to find comedy, a lot of comedians are like very sad people or whatever, you know, to find the whatever. So it's like you get a good director, or in the case of Uncut Gems, good directors, I guess, because it's the Safdie brothers. And it's like, okay, well, you can see what happens here. So I'm not surprised at all by this, because Adam Sandler, I think, is talented. I just think he's put out nothing but shit for like 10 years, really. But that doesn't defeat the thing I thought he was talented in the first place. This is very Uncut Gems is currently very high on my thing, because obviously I loved Good Times. Was it Time or Time?
Times.
Times.
Anyway, because we talked about it on here, that obviously, and I love that movie, so I'm 100% down for this. But yeah, it's like Adam Sandler. Imagine if he gets Adam Sandler nominated for Best Actor for Uncut Gems. What a world we'll live in if that's something that happens.
Well, I suspect he'll at least be nominated, because last year all the winners were nominated for the Academy Awards, so who knows?
Do they know something we don't?
No, they just, they've obviously seen the movie. That helps.
I also want to point out one other thing from Uncut Gems. Lakeith Stanfield is in that shit. That dude, I think, if you follow everything he's in, you'll find a good movie. Is like a general rule of thumb I'm coming to these days.
I'm thinking about doing a segment on the show about best actors for the decade, and I would argue his batting average is very high. That was
because obviously he's in Knives Out, and I'm watching that and I'm like, my dude does no wrong. Like, and he's in so many different things and does so many different roles, so different. I would agree. I mean, we do the segment, we'll make him more, but yeah, I'd agree he's one of the best actors at the moment for sure. He's crazy.
Okay, so they announced the nominees for the 35th Annual Independent Spirit Award, which is any films that are budgeted under $22.5 million, which means that Irishman wasn't going to be included because that budget was about $150 million.
But yeah.
Yeah. Shocking.
The budget nominees, for the CGI was $2.
Yeah. The nominees are A Hidden Life, Clemency, The Farewell, Marriage Story, and Uncut Gems. Best directors are Robert Eggers for The Lighthouse, Alma Harrell for Honey Boy, Julius Ono for Lucy, Benny and Josh Safdie for Uncut Gems, and Lorne Sacrafara for Hustlers. And then Best First Feature, Booksmart, The Climb, Diane, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, The Mustang, and See You Yesterday.
Some of these movies I really wish I could watch, but I don't think we're going to get to watch them obviously until next year.
Yeah.
Like Last Black Man in San Francisco. I found out about that movie a couple months ago. I'm like, this looks quite interesting. And then also I only watched the trailer for Honey Boy a couple weeks ago. I'm like, this looks really good. And you got Shia directing it, and like it's
he's not directing it, I don't think.
Oh, he wrote it? Oh, he wrote it.
He wrote it,
Didn't direct it. Wrote it. Yeah, he wrote it, sorry. Wrote it, and it's like this, not like autobiographical, but like, like sort of based around his experiences, I guess, and that looks really interesting. That's a solid list. Movies, though. A lot of stuff that high nominated, but ain't going to come out here till like fucking February. Like most of those movies ain't going to come out here till like February, March.
But yeah. So check those lists out. Last one I wanted to mention was the Annie Awards released their nominations, which is the animation industry's own awards.
Oh, I thought it was a Hard Knock Life Awards.
It's just for all the actors who are having Hard Knock Life.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the nominees for Best Feature: Frozen 2, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, Claws, Missing Link, Toy Story 4. Obviously, Claws is the interesting one on that list.
I'm going to watch it.
I'm gonna watch it
December.
as well, but it's
Wait until December.
it is much smaller film than the other ones. So that's pretty cool. Best indie feature, Buniel in the Labyrinth of the Turtles, I Lost My Body, Oko's In, Pro Mare, and Weathering with You. So a couple of big Japanese films in that one. They've got a bunch of other TV awards and that kind of thing, but yeah, those are the kind of ones I want to hit on quickly. But yes, it's going to be an interesting Oscar season this year, because I don't think there's, obviously, just talking then, there's no clear-cut thing that's going to be hitting that sounds like everybody's agreeing on yet, which is good.
What, Best Picture
And
one?
none of these is a Green Book, so, I mean, there's still time to predict for it, but nothing is...
Yeah.
It's going to be the Green Book extended version.
I much prefer an Oscars where, like, even if the movie I prefer doesn't win, that I don't hate what does win. You know, so as long as we don't have that scenario happen, I'm good.
All right, that's all that is we're going to be covering this episode. Let's get into what did we end up watching. Dylan, what did we end up watching?
Dragged Across Concrete.
I'm thinking about the kind of future I can offer my girlfriend.
Pops is a yesterday who ain't worth words.
Good heavens and praise be to him. Your absence was a weight upon us.
Thank you, Mr. Edmonton.
I don't like doing things with so many question marks everywhere.
There's a lot of imbeciles out there. Start the party. This is a bad idea.
It's all cotton candy.
We have the skills and the right to acquire proper compensation.
Yes, the 2018 film directed by S. Craig Zala, starring Mel Gibson, Vince Vaughn, Tori Kittles, Michael J. White, Jennifer Carpenter, Laurie Holden, Fred Melamed, Udo Kier, Thomas Kretschmann, and Don Johnson. Once two overzealous cops get suspended from the force, they must delve into the criminal underworld to get their proper compensation. All right.
Before we get into this, can I just say what a resurgence Don Johnson's having?
He is having a good year, a good couple
He was
of
in
years.
2 movies I watched in like 24 hours.
Yes.
I watched Knives Out, came home, and watched Dragged Across Concrete. And he's in both.
And he's in Watchmen and a few
Yeah,
other
Watchmen,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. I like him.
My one asterisk before we get into the movie as well is a slight annoyance at IMDb and how it doesn't recognize what country you're in and update the release date in its thing accordingly. Because it says 2018, so Ash says, "Oh, this movie came out in 2018." This movie came out in 2019.
It did come out in 2019.
It would be
I
eligible.
think it was
I would
in
also say
film
Wikipedia.
festivals in 18.
Yeah, well, it just annoys me because
It released in
just
Venice.
gets very confusing.
So
Yeah, fuck Venice. It
it would
released in Australia
technically-
in August.
it would technically be an Australia, up for the best of the year.
Australian
this year,
release.
if you want.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
Just
yeah,
to
we should
clarify.
get to it.
Because I presume Nick will nominate it because I already saw what he
Yes.
gave it on Trakt. Yeah, so
Ooh,
I mean,
jeez.
you can start with Nick if you want. He likes it the most. I think.
Okay, how about we start with Dylan? Why'd you pick this film?
I picked it because
Because you
we've
knew
watched-
Nick liked it, and you're like, let's go.
No,
like it.
I mean, S. Craig Zala is one of the most interesting directors at the moment, so I'm going to watch every movie that he puts out at this stage, especially because I'm just up to date. Like I watched his first movie, then I watched his second movie, and now his third movie's out, and I'm watching it. Let's just continue watching them as they come out, and I'll never get behind on his damn movies, which is good. I know Nick reads some of his books and everything too. Maybe I'll eventually dive into the book spectrum.
They're
but
really,
at the
really,
moment,
really good.
at the moment, I'm like, at least I'm keeping up in his movies, and I like that because there's directors where you find their work years later.
Ari
You
Aster.
have to go back, find their old stuff, all this sort of stuff. Whereas when you find a director that's new, you're like, watched it, like it. This is my least favorite of his movies. I liked it, but I would say it's my least favorite of his movies simply because I found it's. I kind of tweeted out this, and I guess the way I'll explain it is that the movie seems to want to tell this story where it's like, all right, you got 2 cops, and you got two black dudes on the criminal side. You got these two cops who are like on the good, quote unquote, good side, but then they're like leaning into the bad side, obviously, for what they're trying to do in the movie. Because the movie's about Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn who get put on leave because they get caught like being a bit rough with someone making an arrest. And then they get paid fuck all for their job as detectives, and Mel Gibson's daughter's like getting shit thrown at her by street kids and whatever the fuck else. He's like, we need money to move out here. His wife's got MS, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Multiple sclerosis.
Yeah, so it's like we gotta get out of here. We need the money. So they decide to follow this criminal around for the movie, and hopefully they do a drug bust and they'll be able to steal the money. But of course, things get a bit more than they were expecting. Is the way I'll describe the movie. It's a hard movie to describe, obviously, but I think that's the way I'll describe it. But you also, for the first half hour or so of the movie, you have no idea what's going on because the movie doesn't even start with Mel Gibson's character or Vince Vaughn, even though they're the ones on the poster. And that's because I think in a lot of ways, the movie wasn't supposed to be Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn as the starring actors. It was supposed to be this sort of like 4 starring actors or at least 3 starring actors. But I'd say 3 because the main
Michael J. White isn't really.
What is his name? We should actually get this information because
For Henry, Tory Kittles.
Who?
Tory Kittles for Henry.
Tory Kittles? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's like the movie starts with him.
Yeah.
And then in a lot of ways, I felt like the movie was supposed to be in his mind, S. Craig Zala's mind, this like balance between them, but it was never balanced. But I feel like the movie thinks it was balanced because it's like it would switch between the characters, be like, yeah, look, let's see what it's like from their side, and then let's see what it's like from their side. But by the end, you get to the end of the movie, it still just feels like you got way heavier side of character and story and time to see Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson's character interact with one another. And then like they do one scene where the other 2 dudes are in a car and they talk about how they used to go hang out here when I was younger or something like that. And that was like their one sort of scene where they get dialogue together throughout like the last hour of that movie. So I just feel like it wasn't as balanced as it thinks it is. And it's trying to be like this, there's bad guys on each side, you know, like within the world of Trump's America, you know, like there's bad people on both sides, as he would say. And I think that's what the movie was kind of going for, but it doesn't balance it out. It's still good though. I did enjoy it. I'm not trying to say I didn't like it. I'm just saying I didn't like it as much as Brawl or
Bone Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk, yeah. Which I'd still rank at the top. I think Bone Tomahawk is still my favorite, and then Brawl, and then this.
I think it's the most unique of the 3.
Bone Tomahawk?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like a really Western for like 3/4, and then it's like, hey, we're a horror movie. Let's go and say into the horror movie aspect of it. But no, this is really good. It's a really well acted. Mel Gibson, especially, I think, is a standout in this movie. How good he is. The action scenes when they happen are, as known with him as a director now, quite gory and full on. When they happen, it's really well put together, really well acted. It's not the sort of cop movie that a lot of people are used to watching or probably want because it's very slow paced, but that's exactly the type of movies Zala makes, I guess. So it's like, I knew what I was in for. So that's not a problem for me, but I guess for people who may be like Vince Vaughn, Mel Gibson, it might not be what they're expecting from it. But I liked it. I just think it's had the weakest script of all these movies so far, I guess is the way. Yeah.
All right. I might jump in because I'll tell you what, The Irishman, Dragged Across Concrete is not a good double feature.
Why?
I think
about,
I was.
what's that about? That's about 6 hours.
I think Ashley's going to go into a point that I've seen one other than, I guess, the right wing kind of whatever you want to take from that. The other major talking point is the length of this movie and the pacing, which
it is a slow burn. It is a very slow burn.
I think your mistake was watching it straight after Irishman because I didn't have
probably. I think
for me it just flew. I didn't even notice the runtime.
No, I mean they just kind of do nothing for a long period of time, you know. And then I tell you what,
tension building.
Is it though?
Yes.
You know, cool. He's got a daughter who gets slushies thrown at her for no particular reason. a wife who has MS. That's terrible, but and he wants to propose to his girlfriend. I'm like, okay, you don't have a scene with the girlfriend. You don't have any reason to care whether he gets engaged or not. But whatever.
You're not supposed
and then they start off being dicks to this woman that they're trying to get drugs from. But so I don't care about anybody in this film. And then, and then they introduced somebody I did care about. Jennifer Carpenter came into the film. And she had a really great scene, and then I got really engaged, and then shit went down, and
that's exactly what it was meant to do.
Yeah, and then
the feeling.
I mean, it feels a little bit cheap to introduce somebody and then for shit to go down a certain way. It feels a little bit cheap and purely built up to hurt you and make you care, to have sympathy to characters around the person involved, I guess, to a degree.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a difference between showing people terrorizing other people and showing the effect that the terrorizing has on people.
I guess. But yeah, the second half, it's fine. Once they actually get to do something. It's just a weird movie with weird...
Just to retrospect, because I can't remember, did you like Brawl or no?
Did you even watch Brawl?
No, I didn't watch Brawl.
I thought you did. Oh, no. I thought you did. Okay, never mind. So this is your first Zala film.
This is my first Zala, yeah.
Okay.
Again, I might be
getting
colors.
Ashley's last.
It'll be his last one.
Yeah, probably.
No, I will come in with your, the daughter thing. My one, I do have a problem with the whole daughter thing as well, because that's another scene, and the way that plays out, that feels very rushed and forced to get the narrative going the way it wants to go. Because the wife's like, look, she literally says, I ain't racist, but and I was like, okay, this is stuff like that did feel very heavy handed for the way it wants to tell its story. Yeah. And it comes across really corny. And that's what I mean about bad writing. That's bad writing to me, that scene, for example.
Yeah. But then, that last, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes when shit is going down and things are happening, it's pretty solid, but, it's just not a movie for me. So, But Nick, it's a movie for you, I suspect.
Yeah, I guess you could call me a Zala, super fan in a way.
A zealot? Zala zealot?
Oh, I guess so, yeah. I've read, I'm currently reading 4 out of his 5 books so far, and... seen all these movies. I really loved it. For me, I guess I came out of it that it was taking, I guess, a buddy cop dynamic where they would do those kind of things in the 80s films and drag them, I guess, kicking and screaming into 2019 and portraying them as that they're not good guys. They are not protagonists in any way. They are shown in a light as, I guess, vile people in a way. And... for me, I love the whole tension building, I guess, what they went into doing, was not honourable at all. It's not meant to be, I guess, portrayed in a positive light. I don't know what else to say. I really love the movie. In a way, it also draws comparisons to Irishman, that the violence, again, isn't showy. It's very workmanlike and realistic and gritty, I guess.
I was just thinking, there's one guy.
There's one shot. There's one scene where the violence is not very realistic.
When?
Okay, have you said enough that we can go into spoilers?
Yeah, I'm happy to go into spoilers from the top.
When they shoot Jennifer Carpenter in the head, that is the most terrible looking prosthetic that I've seen in films this year.
I don't want to call you out, but I have seen some pretty awful shit online, and that it's, I guess, pretty accurate.
Yeah, I didn't think it looked bad either. They're using pretty heavy. They're not shooting over a fucking pistol. You know what I mean?
No, it looked fake, in my opinion. Not her hands, yeah. But
yeah.
It's only a split second or so that you see it, but it's that doesn't look right. Maybe it's just poor editing or something, or lighting, but
Yeah. I mean,
But yes,
yeah.
building her up to be just to kill her was a frustrating thing for me.
I mean, I can understand that. Like, I guess it's trying to elicit a different response than, I guess, what you were expecting, in a way.
No, it just felt manipulated. That's what it felt like.
How dare
I mean,
you,
I just felt
Zala?
like, we put her story in here purely to manipulate my feelings about the thing.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
She served no other purpose in the story than to
No.
die. So,
Yes.
I guess if you read... I mean, whether you want to draw the comparison between his style, like in his books, he has similar sort of kind of like little spotlights of introducing people into, I guess, emphasize what's happening in a way. Like this particular book I'm reading right now, the beginning of a chapter, like a whole chapter is dedicated to some guy that ends up dying. Just for it advances the plot in a way, I guess, but he's not connected to anything at all. Back to the movie anyway. I love the dialogue personally. I love the interactions between the Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn as well. Like the way everything was probability based with Mel Gibson.
That was a
which
good
was
thing for his character.
quirky
70s
and
movie.
like really unique, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And-
the dialogue's good. I enjoyed them seeing about like I could have watched. I think that's the thing that I didn't get bored about the movie. It's just like even when you watch Vince Vaughn eat for like 20, 30 seconds before, just to
masticating,
hear
yeah.
Mel Gibson go, "A red ant could eat that far." Like it's just
Yeah.
the delivery and everything that works because it's they're good together and the dynamic works between them that makes that stuff actually work. But yeah, my biggest problem isn't the dialogue per se. It's just
I understand.
there's like
where
a
you're
very
coming from.
there is a
Yeah.
lot of heavy-handedness to this movie that he hasn't had previously. I don't think. Like even for example, if you want to go to Vince Vaughn's girlfriend, the one interaction, like the one scene we see her walking in on a phone, like to go to the jacket to find the ring. She's like, "Oh yeah, install these ramps, all this sort of stuff." Like this, and the dialogue's obviously purposely written to give you the like. She's like a really like, obviously makes it come across like she's a left-leaning fucking, like this sort of person, blah, 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 blah. As soon as I hearing all that, I'm like, why the fuck is she dating Vince Vaughn? You know what I mean? Like, it just took me out of the movie for a second because I'm like, I don't understand their dynamic, so I don't care for them. I'm not racist, but the black kids outside threw shit. And then I'm also like, why is it 5 times? Like, that's such a weird number. Like, you're a cop, you're both
Over
cops,
2 years.
and you're telling me, I'm like 5 times. You're both parents are cops, and you're telling me it took the 5 times before you decide to do something about it. And I'm not racist, but I'm like, there's just a lot of weird. It seems like he writ part 1 of the movie first, and then like tried to fit in these little bits of things to make the overall like theme, I guess, of the movie. And I do believe the theme is supposed to be like, you know what? Like, there's some bad people on this side. There's some bad. Like, I'm not trying to say that he's like fully like some Trump-leaning crazy person or something like that. I think the theme is supposed to be like there's bad people on both sides, sort of argument. But I just don't think it works. And I would also say that there's definitely a theme for the movie because I don't think he's a dumb person. I think all these movies have themes and like they're about shit. So I just don't think it works for me personally. But I still enjoyed the movie. It's just several times I'd be watching it and I'd be like, but then like the scene would change and I'm like, all right, I'm back. I'm tense. I'm like, like I'm in the movie. Like what's happening? And then I'll be like, it didn't happen often enough to ruin the movie, but like, those couple scenes where I'm like, that was a bit weird, but yeah, that's why I'd rank it at the lowest. Whereas like Dragged Across, Bone Tomahawk
Brawl
and Brawl,
yeah.
None of those movies had any of those moments. To me, it was just constant like, especially Bone Tomahawk, where it's just like these really well written characters from the get go, and the tension just builds and builds and builds and builds into the end of it. And then Brawl is also like similar sort of. Brawl's a lot more similar to this, and where it's like telling the story of someone who's like downtrodden, like American person, like like he's not like a really great guy, but at the same time like he gets fucked over, and that's the sort of the class system, I guess that movie's sort of supposed to be about. And these sorts of things, but I think he pulls off that a lot better in that movie because he sticks the landing a lot better. Yeah.
Cool.
Either way,
my movie of the year so far, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to be honest. But I was gonna say that my last comment would be that like this movie, like Vince Vaughn's done 2 movies now with him, and it's like, okay, we'll just keep working with Vince Vaughn. Just keep working with Zala because he's making you actually act good
He obviously likes Jennifer Carpenter too.
as well. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Don Johnson.
Don Johnson, yeah.
And the guy, I can't remember the actor's name, the one who like Mel Gibson gets the job off, goes behind there. I can't remember that dude's name.
Oh yeah, I know. I can picture his face. Yeah,
Fred Melamed.
that's the one.
Nailed it. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of What Do You Want to Watch? Nick, where can people find you on the internet and still on Twitter?
You can find me at Trakt at Lord and Pryor.
Dylan, where can people find you on the internet?
All the places at Vivladil, VIVALADIL.
You find me most places, Ashley Hobley, ASHLEYHOBLEY. It's been a long night. You can follow the Explosion Network, which is a part of, on Twitter at ExplosionPod. You go to youtube.com/Explosion Network to find all our video content. You can go to explosionnetwork.com to check out all our podcasts or reviews. Everything's right there. Easy to find. If you want to talk to us, Discord. On Discord, you can go to explosionnetwork.com/Discord. Our Discord's right there. It's unbelievable. It's a fact. If you want to send us an email, mail@explosionnetwork.com. If you want to help us out, leave us a review, either on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser, or just write something nice on Twitter. It's always nice. We see them on Twitter. We like them on Twitter. So if you want to get likes from all of us on Twitter, leave us a nice review about what do you want to watch. Or just talk to people about the show and how, discuss Nick's love of Craig. Yes, Craig Zala.
You got it. All right, just wrap the show up. Okay, we do wrap the show.
Is it bordering on religious cult stuff? Probably.
Oh my god.
All right. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.
Every trophy counts. Don't be told otherwise. Join myself and Ash each Tuesday when a shiny new episode of Platinum Explosion dings into podcast feeds. The #1 PlayStation podcast in the Oceanias breaks down all the latest in PlayStation related news, releases, trophy lists, and much, much more. Just search your podcast app for Platinum Explosion and subscribe for free now.
Okay. We'll be going over what's our Watch series this episode. We'll be talking about a little bit of film news, and then we'll be talking about the movie that we ended up watching, Dragged Over Concrete.
Across
Dragged
concrete. It dragged across concrete. You have one job as the host, for fuck's
They're
sake.
not street sharks, they're all going through the concrete.
Dragged Across Concrete.